Tonight on Talking Points, Jeff Sessions is out as Attorney General. How did this happen, and what does the interim AG have planned? We'll have all that and more in the latest cabinet shakeup.
Accusations of fraud are rocking the states of Florida and Arizona as major elections remain uncalled. We'll have the full details on what's going on behind the scenes in these states.
The right to asylum is reserved to those fleeing persecution in their home countries, but President Trump might have something to say about that. We'll have the latest on the potential presidential action against migrants. This is Talking Points. Israeli forces and Palestinian militants are exchanging fire on the Gaza Strip. The violence began this Sunday after an Israeli raid resulted in the death of a Hamas commander. Good evening, I'm Shama.
And I'm Gilat Melamed. Today's attacks resulted in over a dozen injured Israelis and 3 dead Palestinians. Jeff Sessions is out as Attorney General. The former Alabama senator was asked to leave his post by President Trump. As Attorney General, Sessions ordered federal prosecutors to begin seeking maximum criminal charges for offenders.
Sessions was also a staunch supporter of providers of medical marijuana. He was also part of the effort to remove funding from sanctuary cities, which was overturned by federal judges. Sessions' former Chief of Staff Matthew Whitaker took over as interim AG on Thursday. Current Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein gave his thoughts on Whitaker on Friday.
And as serving as Chief of Staff, I think he's a superb choice for Attorney General. He certainly understands the work, understands the priorities and principles of the department. I think he's going to do a superb job as Attorney General.
We're now joined by Talking Points analyst Jack Watson to discuss the change in Attorney General. So, first question to you, Jack. This didn't happen overnight. What led to Sessions falling out of favor?
Well, certainly not. The relationship between the president and Jeff Sessions can be dated back to the campaign trail in early 2016 when Sessions was out there in Alabama campaigning for the president. But really, where we see the relationship begin to foster a little bit is when he becomes the Attorney General in early February of 2017. After that, in March, after there becomes speculation about Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election, Sessions recuses himself. And reportedly, several reports say that Trump was incredibly unhappy over this decision. And then in mid-May, Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, appointed Bob Mueller to investigate any ties to Russia. And later, in 2018, it really came more into the public eye, the sort of contentiousness of the relationship between Trump and Sessions, when on Fox and Friends, the president went on and publicly bashed him, and also went on Twitter the day afterwards and did the same thing.
Now, we saw, everything that transpired. So was this departure inevitable, or do you think there was any way the two could have found a middle ground?
After that recusal, I think so. I think that if experts are anything to go off of, that Jeff Sessions was the pick for Attorney General initially to be an ally to Trump because they're ideologically aligned. They both are very much against illegal immigration, against medical marijuana, as you mentioned, Elijah. I think that this split was probably inevitable after that early March recusal from Jeff Sessions.
So Whitaker has kind of garnered a lot of media attention for being close to Trump. What does that mean in terms of the relationship? What does that mean in terms of how he would act as interim AG?
Right. Well, Matthew Whitaker is a interesting pick, I think, for acting Attorney General because what the president did was he went over a number of names, including a Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, who is directly beneath Jeff Sessions, in order to make Whitaker, who is the former Chief of Staff, the Attorney General. Now, Whitaker is very much ideologically in line with the president. He is against the Affordable Care Act. He is against chain migration. But what really separates Matthew Whitaker from the rest of the candidates is that he is vocally against the Mueller probe. And that's why a lot of people surrounding Washington are worried for the Mueller probe.
And that's where we'll have to leave it today. A new Congress is set to take office in January, and with that comes leadership elections. With the Democrats flipping the House of Representatives, that means that leadership posts will be shifting across the board. Here to tell us what to watch for in these leadership races is Talking Points analyst Brandon Ross.
Well, Elijah, there are certainly some things to watch out for when it comes to party leadership. There won't be any movement in the Senate. Republicans maintained and padded their majority, and no one in the Senate leadership of either party is leaving their posts. But as you mentioned, the House is flipped, and there will be plenty of movement there. The most obvious race to keep an eye on is the race for Speaker. Former Speaker and current Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi has already declared that she'll look to take her old job back. Pelosi first won the job after the Democratic wave election of 2006 and held it until the Tea Party wave thrust John Boehner into the speakership. No one has announced plans to challenge her for the spot yet, but there's a decent chance that someone will pull it up a fight. Should Pelosi win back the job, the line of succession would be straightforward in some cases and murky in some others. Congressman Steny Hoyer would almost certainly move from party whip to majority leader, but beyond him, there could be some tight battles for positions. Congressman James Kleinberg and Congresswoman Diane DeGette are duking it out for majority whip. Meanwhile, two members of the Black Caucus, Hakeem Jeffries and Barbara Lee, are locked in a battle for chair of the Democratic caucus. On the other side of the aisle, the only true fight going on is for minority leader. Current Speaker Paul Ryan is retiring from Congress, so Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy becomes the Republicans' top dog. Now McCarthy is currently the top dog, but he's facing a challenge from Jim Jordan. He's the co-founder of the House Freedom Caucus, and the Ohio congressman has never made a bid for party leader, but has received protest votes for speaker in the past. We'll know the outcome of that race very soon, as Republicans are holding their leadership elections on Wednesday. We'll have to wait a hair longer for the Democrats. They choose their leaders on November 28th. The only post those two votes don't account for is speaker, as that vote's at the mercy of the full House when it reconvenes with new members in January.
So, Brandon, if there's going to be a challenge to Nancy Pelosi, who's it going to be? Who should we be looking out for?
Well, I think if you're picking a name, you have to look at Tim Ryan. He's a congressman out of Ohio. He's a little more moderate, and he's trying to drag the party a little bit closer to the center. And on the flip side, you could also see a challenge to the left of Pelosi. Pelosi is seen as sort of more of a party elder who hasn't really conformed to the times. You might see some more progressive challengers with a little more fresh blood try to take the mantle from her.
Now, for House Minority Leader, wide open race with Paul Ryan's retirement. Who do you see getting that post?
I think Kevin McCarthy is the heavy favorite. Like I already mentioned, he is currently the majority leader in Congress, obviously now going to be in the minority, but he has a stable hold. Jim Jordan is kind of laughed at a little bit as the House Freedom Caucus chair. People tend not to give him a lot of attention, but Kevin McCarthy, very well entrenched in his post, likely to take the spot there.
So which of these two races is more competitive?
Well, I'd say of these two races, the more competitive race will probably be the House Minority Leader race. But as I mentioned, Kevin McCarthy probably still has that pretty much in the bag. Pelosi could get a solid challenge too. You'll probably see some good fights from people, but in the end, she'll probably take her old job back as well.
Now, Pelosi was the first female Speaker of the House. Does she keep that post? I mean, like you said, there's a flack from both sides, from the more moderates, from the more liberals, saying she's not doing enough. In the end, does she remain the next Speaker of the House?
It seems almost certain at this point. Like I said, no challenger yet. There's likely going to be a challenger. It could be a fight, but I think Nancy Pelosi has well entrenched herself with party leaders, other members of the party. She's shoring up. There are a lot of newer members of Congress who are a little bit more iffy on her, but she's very known to whip the votes and get everything she wants. So I think she's proven to her party she's an effective leader, and she'll retake the mantle.
So what's she going to have to prove again if she wants to get this post again? I mean, you talked about those people who are going to try and run to the left of her. How is she going to be able to adapt, or is she going to continue running the same platform that she's always run?
Well, I think she's got to appease the younger members of the party. There are a lot, like I said, a lot of fresh blood in Congress, a lot of younger women, a lot of younger Congress people in general, trying to drive the party a little bit more to the left. She might have to shift some positions. She might have to appease them a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, she's proven that she has the leadership skills, and she will really get a mantle hold of those votes and take back the speakership.
All right, we'll leave it there. So coming up, we'll review last week's midterm elections and the races that still remain uncalled. Stay tuned.
Well, Thomas, you've got prediabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it.
You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Come on, it's not that hard.
My big man fingers are having a problem with these little tiny buttons.
Whoa, watch it there. Your blood pressure's gonna go through the roof.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to learn how to get it down. Instead, it keeps going up.
High blood pressure can increase the risk for heart attack or stroke. Learn how to keep yours at a healthy range.
Ever hear a voice command? Just say text barbershop to 97779.
That's not what I said.
Just give me that. Now my blood pressure's up.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Controversy has been brewing all week in Florida after laws were broken and election tampering was alleged in Broward and Palm Beach counties. Election officials have been under fire from Republicans after failing to meet state standards for counting votes. Talking Points analyst Michael Furnari is here with the details. Michael, it's been almost a week of uncertainty and chaos. Can you break it all down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a mess ever since election night in Florida. There really has been So since kind of the early evening on Tuesday, Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis, running for governor and or senator and governor respectively, had very slim leads, either less than about 1.5 points. Rick Scott closer to about 0.8 of a point. And the big thing that was happening on election night was that people didn't know what the results were in Broward County and Palm Beach in particular. And the votes that were left to count at the end of the night were from those counties. And so the question on election night was, we'll see what happens, but it looks like the two will be able to win. The numbers just didn't seem to add up. And then what happened was, you wait a day, you wait a second day, and the votes had not been tallied in Broward. And not only were the results not given, but Broward County and Palm Beach County weren't even willing to say how many votes were left to be counted. And so the problem with that is that in Florida law, you can only wait a certain amount of hours after the polls close before you have to disclose how many ballots are left. And so in that sense, they were in violation of the law. And then what happened in kind of the day or two that follow, you saw this from Marco Rubio, you've seen it from Rick Scott, is that Republicans really kind of poured into Florida to try to see exactly what was going on, because the problem is that when you don't know how many ballots are even left, it's almost an impossible process to kind of quantify. So the thing that we saw is, Rick Scott issued a lawsuit about a day after the election, and it's been really a tooth and nail fight ever since. So how does Brenda Snipes fit into this? She's been taking flack from everyone. Who is she? Why is she important to this story?
Brenda Snipes. She is the Broward County Supervisor of Elections. She's held that post since 2003. And Brenda Snipes has really had kind of a checkered past. I mean, out of all the counties in America, you could argue she's probably been the most embattled and had the toughest time. So Brenda Snipes has been caught destroying ballots. She's been caught keeping ballots that weren't submitted on time and counting them in the vote. She's been caught letting felons, before the law passed, letting them vote in Florida. She's been caught having felons and illegal immigrants vote in her elections. So she's really kind of been a scrutinized figure in the past, but she's under fire a lot because people were suspecting that there was some kind of foul play going on because she was refusing to specify how many ballots were left, and also she was refusing to allow any kind of third-party observers into the elections office to oversee what was going on. And it looks like she's not going to make it out of this year. The talk has been that she's either going to resign once this whole fiasco is over, or Governor Ron DeSantis will suspend her, which she does have the power to do.
And once these things came to light, how have people been reacting, whether it's the media, Republicans, Democrats, politicians?
Yeah, so this is kind of, I guess, old news for Florida. We remember the 2000 recount. And so I think it's kind of been deja vu in that sense where, as soon as this happened, all the Republicans you can imagine, the lawyers descended on Florida. It dominated kind of conservative media for a few days. Rubio, Rick Scott, everybody was talking about this one. And it's really been kind of just, your average tooth and nail partisan fight in the sense that, everybody's just kind of fighting for their side. Principles are kind of all moot kind of in this strange little realm during this election. So people are just kind of fighting tooth and nail. And a lot of people are calling for Brenda Snipes' head. I guess that's the reaction.
So moving forward, it's been a minute already. We still don't know who's won. What are we going to see moving forward?
Well, if you look at the numbers of what's going on in these two counties with how many votes they have left to count, it doesn't seem like, I mean, no matter what result there is from these recounts, because there is going to be an automatic recount because of how close the voting was, and then however many votes are left to be counted, it doesn't seem plausible that the race could change. So it looks like DeSantis is safe. It looks like Rick Scott is safe. But that isn't a guarantee. Again, Rick Scott is ahead about 13,000 votes, and DeSantis is up about 40,000. So very thin margins, but it looks like those two will win as they were expected to do going into the rest of the week. It looks like Brenda Snipes is not going to be in her position much longer. And so the thing that's closest in the near future is that on Wednesday, so there's going to be a judge will decide some of the adjudication with regards to how these ballots are going to be counted. And the most recent news on the lawsuit front is that today, Rick Scott filed to have an injunction where there could be people inspecting and protecting all the voting machines, and that got struck down this morning.
All right, Michael, thank you so much. We know you'll be following the recount for us. And turning to another state 6 days after Election Day, and Arizona is still counting votes. This is a pretty normal process for them, but typically the state is reliably Republican. With the Senate race between Martha McSally and Kyrsten Sinema razor tight, uncertainty remains. Here to break down the votes and counting process is Talking Points analyst Anthony Dabbundo.
On election night, Republican Martha McSally held a 1-point lead over Democrat Kyrsten Sinema. Most states with little early voting or mail-in ballots can be called on election night, but not Arizona. This state receives hundreds of thousands of votes by mail and absentee, which can take weeks to count. Now, typically it doesn't matter. Republicans have won this state for decades, but the suburban rejection of Trump and the growing Hispanic population has turned the state a bit purple. Now, McSally and Sinema are both former congresswomen, and the race was hotly contested. On election night, many pundits claimed that McSally was on her way to a win. Since the ballots have been dumped piecemeal each day by the counties, everything has changed. Sinema now leads by about 38,000 votes, good enough for a 1.7% lead. Now, the majority of the ballots still out come from Maricopa County. It's Phoenix and the surrounding suburbs. Now, Jeff Flake won this district in 2012, but now Sinema has about a 3-point lead. It tends to be a pretty accurate bellwether for the entire state, and it's easily the most populous county. Again, like I said, Flake won the county. This is the map from 2012 when he won re-election. He's retiring. 2018, Sinema holds a lead. So day after day, the county has reported a chunk of its votes, and Sinema's lead has expanded each time that Maricopa has put in its votes. She's only winning the county by about 3 points, but the mail-in votes and the absentees skew Democratic. She's won each of these extra votes by about 15%. Now, the McSally camp isn't giving up. They don't think the race is over. She's continued to say that the remaining votes from Maricopa are enough for the suburban and the rural counties. But if we take a look at the map here, the remaining votes that were dropped off on Election Day, these voters are much more Republican. And she's pointed to reliably Republican neighboring counties. Now, last time Pinal County did post, McSally barely made a dent in Sinema's lead. The reality for McSally is this. Sinema holds a lead in both counties that have the most votes out, Maricopa and Pima. Now, Pima is Tucson. It's very Democratic. And after crunching the numbers, it looks difficult to find a path where McSally makes up the deficit. And I've just received word that the AP has called the race for Kyrsten Sinema. So McSally is likely to become an Arizona senator anyway because John Keel is retiring. He was the one that was appointed to the seat by the governor, Doug Ducey, when John McCain passed away. Keel says he's retiring after this year. So McSally has lost the race for Senate, but she's going to be appointed to be the Senate. So at the end of the day, they're both going to be Arizona senators, and she'll have to run again in 2020. So they're both likely heading to Washington to serve their constituents in Arizona. And so at the end of the day, they're both senators, but Sinema is a key Democratic pickup in Arizona.
All right, so Anthony, we've seen a lot of controversies. We were just talking about Florida. How have Arizona officials responded now that this is all over? How did they deal with this?
So we saw in Florida that there's been a lot of controversy. Michael was just talking about that. There's been a ton of lawsuits. Brenda Snipes has received a lot of criticism. In Arizona, there hasn't been any of that because this is a normal process for them. Much like California, like Oregon, Arizona has a lot of mail-in votes. And typically, the Republicans, they win the seats easily. Trump won the state by 5 points. McCain was a senator for years. Flake was a senator for years. It hasn't been competitive. And now, for the first time, Arizona is going to have a Democratic senator. So they're not used to these competitive races at the statewide level, but like I said earlier, the purpling of Arizona has made closer elections. Now, there have been some people, from outside areas saying, oh, what's going on? Why are there so many Democratic votes coming in late? But the reality is, this is nothing new. Governor Doug Ducey said on Twitter the other day that they're going to count every single vote. And he's not surprised at all by the Sinema taking the lead because he knows how many votes come in late. There were over 500,000 votes not counted on election night that were counted late. And if we take a look at other officials, there haven't been any lawsuits. The Secretary of State, Michelle Regan, she has a Twitter account that one of her data analysts runs. And each day, the county posts its daily update and how many ballots are left. So unlike Florida and Broward County, where we had no idea how many ballots were out, in Arizona, we knew how many ballots were out, we knew where they were coming from, and every time they got posted, we got a new update on the state website. So they've done an excellent job of making sure nothing is shady with the business here.
All right, thank you. Coming up, the Trump administration is planning new limitations on migrants coming into the country. Don't go away.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
Every time I hear the alarm bell go off in school, I think it's an air raid. A lot of houses in our neighborhood have been destroyed. I like to close my ears and sing songs whenever the bombs come close. I'm worried our new neighbors won't like us. But I know it's all gonna be worth it. I just want my family to be safe. But these are not my words. These are not my words. These are not my words.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent. We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness. I am a witness. I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
On Thursday, the Trump administration publicized possible limits on people seeking asylum in the U.S. Immigrant advocacy groups are trying to challenge the restrictions in court. Talking Points analyst Peyton May is here to discuss the possible implications. So, Peyton, does this contradict existing law?
Well, the U.S. law that we have right now is the Immigration and Nationality Act, and that basically says that anyone coming into the country legally or illegally trying to seek asylum could go from any port, no matter if it's a registered port or not, and they're able to file that claim to seek asylum there. And this is basically contradicting that. But what Congress has said before, too, they brought up this point again, saying that that is still valid and that immigrants coming in can go to whatever port that they can go to, because a lot of problem in this case is people are coming from very far away, obviously, and cannot make it to one port, so they try to go to a different port. But I think what the Trump administration is trying to put across is that these ports are being very overcrowded. They're overwhelmed by the amount of people coming. In 2008, there were 5,000 people, and now in 2018, there are 97,000 people. So obviously, this is increased drastically. So I think that they're trying to veer towards maybe a little more regulation on the amount of people that are coming in.
Mm-hmm. So under this new plan, they're looking for more regulation, but for those seeking asylum, what do they have to follow?
So basically, they have to go through specific entry ports that are laid out, and if they don't go through those specific ports, then the deportation process is going to follow that, and they won't be able to file the claim for asylum. So that's different, obviously, than it has been before, because someone could come in and file that later. But right now, how I said that, the ports are very overwhelmed. So there's people that have been waiting days, weeks, sitting on the side of the border, camping out, trying to get into the country just for their preliminary hearing. So we'll see if that's going to continue or get even worse potentially because of the amount of people that are only being funneled into, say, 4 ports instead of 10.
And now, final question, do you think this is going to go through?
Well, I do think that this is going to go through. Right now, the ACLU has filed suit, and they're hoping that federal district judges in California are going to hold off on this ban tomorrow, but we'll see if that goes through. I think Trump administration is using the same premise that they've used on the travel ban. So now that he has Kavanaugh and a lot of more right-leaning justices on the court, he might be able to run with that and keep that just like how he kept the travel ban.
All right, certainly a story to follow, Peyton. Thank you. After the break, we'll be honoring the death of an American cultural icon as well as his impact on the issues of his time. Talking Points will be right back.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
You've messed up your son's haircut.
Mom?
Do you A, try to fix it?
Like it never happened.
B, work with what you got? Or C, show solidarity?
Thank you, babe.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
I spy something beginning with S.
Snow?
No.
Snow-covered trees.
Nothing to do with snow.
Head outside to discover incredible animals and beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure.
Wow.
So grab your loved ones.
Don't even.
And explore a world of possibilities.
Come on, this way.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you.
At Marvel, the only things we don't have room for are hatred, intolerance, and bigotry. Those are the words of Marvel Comics writer and publisher Stan Lee, who died aged 95 earlier today. Lee was responsible for the creation of many of Marvel's flagship characters, including Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the X-Men.
Lee's career peaked in the Silver Age of comic books following World War II. Marvel Comics began focusing on superheroes with more human problems, a stark contrast to the pre-war heroes published by the likes of DC Comics. Lee was a proponent of using comic books to highlight the issues of his time.
For example, Tony Stark became Iron Man after suffering from the Vietnam War. Spider-Man starred in a short arc devoted to the dangers of drug use. Many commentators have interpreted the X-Men as a commentary on race relations in the 1960s, as well as early commentary on issues such as the acceptance of homosexuality. Lee also pioneered more diverse superheroes, introducing the Black Panther and the Falcon as heroes that the black community could relate to. So, reflecting back on this man's life, he was more than just the cameos, clearly, and his enduring impact is clearly being seen right now. Gilat?
Right, yeah, I think you kind of see it as a watershed moment kind of in our cultural history. This is where it really began, of artists commenting on social issues, and we see it today. We see it at every award show when an artist steps up on stage and uses that moment in the spotlight to kind of comment on these social issues. I think we really saw that begin with Stan Lee.
Yes, especially with the representation. You can just look at Black Panther and you can see the importance of putting people of color on screen and what that means to communities. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Elijah Shama.
And I'm Gilat Melamed. Have a great night, Syracuse.